Hey, welcome to a new episode of Princella's Real World. I'm your girl, Princella. If this is your first time and you like real world, real news, and real views, make sure you click the subscribe button and the notification bell so that way you don't miss out on any content. Now, you want this work. You want to get this work for a lot of reasons. Now, before we get started, let me go ahead and hit you with the 30-second law of power. Play to people's fantasies. The truth is often avoided because it is ugly and it is unpleasant. Never appeal to truth and reality unless you are prepared for the anger that comes for disenchantment. Life is so harsh and distressing that people who can manufacture romance or conjure up fantasy are like oases in the desert. Everyone flocks to them. There is great power in tapping into the fantasies of the masses. I'm not here to play with your fantasies. I'm not here to create fantasies for you. I'm here to hit you with reality and truth because the truth will set you free. All right. So with that being said, we are continuing the abortion series. We are on episode number 5, and this episode is talking about cause and effect. Cause and effect. Now, it is important to note that nothing in this world is real. And Princella, what do you mean by it's not real? Everything that you believe or everything that you're experiencing is based on a belief. You are believing something, and you don't have to have facts or reality or truth to believe it. You can believe anything, but just because you believe something doesn't mean that it's real. And your belief creates your perception on reality. So if you are believing something that's false, then your perception on reality is also false, even though it's true to you. So what we're going to be doing is given the reality of certain things. Now, the reality is that everything in the world is a philosophy. Every train of thought or every school of thought is a philosophy. The reality is that all humans are created from an animal base. Our base nature is animalistic. The only thing that makes us human is our ability to create illusions, create dreams, and live up to them. It's our awareness of our animal nature. That's what makes us different. We would call that metacognition. That the prefrontal cortex and a few other parts of the brain are responsible for housing metacognition. That is the thing that separates us from animals. See, animals, they move in their nature as it is what it is. If they gonna kill, if they gonna eat folks alive, it is what it is with them. Humans have come to an awareness that they don't like certain things about their animal nature, and they're going to attempt to try to govern the animal nature. That's what it is. How do they come to govern it depends on how far or how high they are on Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, which is what we talked about in episode 4. So if you missed episode 4, you can check it in the links below. It will be posted, and it's in one of these cards in the top of the screen, so make sure you check that. All right. So here is the challenge. Since everything is a philosophy that is created from thought, school of thought, depending on how much power you have determines how effective you may be at pushing your school of thought for everybody else to abide by. All right. Humans don't do anything unless they are forced to do so. If you want to push people to your philosophy, you're going to have to do it by force because they're not going to voluntarily do it themselves. Okay? Here is the effect. That is the cause. Okay? Because right now what we're talking about, we are talking about the abortion ban. Okay? We're talking about people being forced to do something, right? But a lot of people believe that if you force people who are on the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, that it will magically make them rise up to self-actualization. And in the previous episode, we showed you where that is an illogical position to take. But here is what happens when you force people to move in a direction that they don't necessarily want to move. You may think that you solve one problem, but you now create another one. You force people to do something they don't want to do, and now you create rebellion. Okay? This is what happens. So you can force an ideal of marriage. In your mind, as the ruler, you say, okay, marriage is what I want to see people doing. So we're going to make laws and create law enforcement to force people to abide by the ideals that I create in my mind. Now understand, animals don't have marriage. There is no such thing as marriage in the animal. This is something that humans created to govern their animalistic nature, to place a cap on it, attempt to place a cap on it. Okay, so this is an ideal. It's an ideal, okay? To push this ideal, a person in power gets in a position and puts laws and law enforcement in place. What happens is, remember, human nature is still going to be human nature. You don't solve it all because you still will get people who will sneak out and break the rules that you set because their human nature is still active. If that's not true, you can put a law that says, hey, don't run a red light. If no one's around prior to the cameras coming out, people was running red lights. Well, that's why they got cameras out now. So even when ain't nobody around, the camera see you. If a cop don't see you, because people are going to do it. You're not going to be able to stop it. So, but what you do create is rebellion when you try to force people to do something. All right. So right now, people are depending on people to do things on their own, but they're not, because the saying is, if you give a person an inch, what? They gonna take a mile. People always gonna take a mile. So you can't give them no inches. Well, guess what? You don't like being controlled. You are okay with governing somebody else or controlling someone else when it goes in line with your beliefs. You're okay with it. But what occurs when there is a law in place that forces you to go against something that you don't believe, to go along with something you don't believe? What happens? Violence. Cause and effect. What happens when you force people who are on the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, who will not elevate to self-actualization? What happens when you force these people to have children and they haven't stabilized themselves? Well, you get a Malia Davis situation. This is what you get. You get a Malia Davis situation. You get a child situation where these children are being sexually abused and molested. Because what happens when you look at the study of the human brain, especially when you talk about the male's brain, we're going to be going into more detail about the word masculinity and masculine. But we know that scientifically, the male brain, okay, because he's got more testosterone, which is responsible for sex drive, we know that he has a higher sex drive than the female. This testosterone is also responsible for violent tendencies. Okay? All right? It's also responsible for that as well. Okay? Well, what happens when you put a male who is on the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, where sex is a part of that, who has no moral code, because that is a part of self-actualization? What happens when you put that person around children? There's a strong likelihood, a very strong likelihood of something negative happening, or something that you deem as negative happening because of the biology. We're going to go into even more detail of why males do not get persecuted for rape. The scientific reason why males do not get severely persecuted for rape. We're going to go into that. But you have to understand the cause and effect and how these things happen. So when we're talking about abortion, if you force people who are on the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of human needs and you claim to be pro-life, you have to understand that there's more to life than being born. And we will talk about that in the next episode. But what you will effectively do is cause people who are not fit to have children, because they're not going to stop having sex, as we showed you in episode 4. It's illogical to even think that they're going to do that. It's illogical to think that birth control is going to stop all pregnancies. It's illogical to think that everybody's even capable of using birth control consistently. It's impossible to think that humans are going to be infallible. There's so many holes there that you say, because you don't feel a certain way, feel good about not bringing a child into the world, you're forcing people who are mentally unstable, who are poor, and who are in crime-infested environments, who don't have a family support system, completely unstable. You're going to force these people to have children because you believe that it will force people to move from the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy to the top of Maslow's hierarchy. You effectively put these children in dangerous situations. And if to end up being killed, to end up being emotionally distraught, abused, to end up being sexually abused. This is what to end up being abandoned, because guess what? If the male walks off, which he typically does and will typically do, because he doesn't want to be accountable and responsible. When the female is in need, guess what? She's going to have, it's not an if and a but. She's going to have another male who is not the father of the child to come in and to provide some type of support. Whether that is emotional support or even financial support, that increases the likelihood of the child being in a dangerous situation. And if you're saying, oh, well, that's what she gets, you're now using the child's life that you said you were pro-life for. You're now choosing to use the child's life as a punishment for the parent. and not even thinking about the welfare and the well-being of the child. Let's not even talk about up to 40% of children are being abused in foster homes and stuff like that. So what exactly is it that you're eliminating? Cause and effect. What exactly is it that you're eliminating? Because now you're causing more damage than good. Now once you force a bunch of people who are on the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, who barely can take care of themselves, you force them to have children because they're not going to stop having sex, right? What now? Where do the children go now? Because see, the prisons are already overpopulated. You already have the school to prison pipeline. You can't handle the people that you have here now. What then occurs when you force people to have more children in these environments? What do you need now? You're going to need more police. You're going to need more jails. And now the laws will get stricter, and the abuse or the rough handling of these situations will get even more strenuous. What do you do? Do you want these children to be born into these environments where you know statistically they don't have a chance? Are you going to focus on the minority that may get lucky and make it out, and and put the rest of them to doom and say, oh well, let them figure it out? Think about that. If you're pro-life, think about that. But that's all I have to say. I need you to really, really, really follow that on to the end. Now, if you like this type of commentary, make sure you click the subscribe button and the notification bell, because you don't want to miss out on any content, because we're going to keep on hitting you. We're going to be doing a podcast. We got books coming out. We got a lot of stuff that you really, 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 really want to be a part of. Make sure you leave a comment. Leave a comment so I know how you're thinking. All right? I ain't got nothing else to say. I'll check you on the next episode. Peace.